Welcome to the Healthcare Revolution podcast, where we empower you to take control of your health, restore your trust in the healthcare system, and achieve lasting wellness. I'm your host, Brad Powell, Doctor of Physical Therapy. I'm the owner of an award-winning clinic here in the Salt Lake Valley. Each episode, we dive into all things rehab prevention, overall health, bringing you expert insights from leaders across various healthcare fields. Please note, while we strive to provide you with the best knowledge and advice, the opinions shared represent those of experts and are not a replacement of professional, medical, or in this case, law advice. So let's revolutionize healthcare and wellness together. Today, I have with me one of the best lawyers I know here in the Salt Lake Valley, Resh Jefferies. He owns his own practice. He's been in hundreds of litigations. He's worked for two of the biggest firms here in the state, and I'm excited to have him on the podcast to talk about auto accidents, what to know about auto accidents, how to get a great lawyer, when to get a lawyer, and all things about lawyers. So we're going to dive into our first few questions here. Welcome.
Thanks for having me. Thank you.
It's good to have you here.
Yeah.
Let's talk about just the role of an attorney. Why is this topic critical for the public?
So if we're talking about just auto accidents in general and why to get an attorney, in general, I think that the insurance companies are a business. I think you have to start with that and recognize that at the end of the day, they're trying to save money. They're trying to work on their bottom line, and so they have their lawyers. They're advocating for their position, and I think that the general public should advocate for theirs.
Yeah. Do you feel like insurance companies always give the most accurate information for these cases?
Absolutely not. Yeah. I think they're businesses. They have a reputation to uphold to some degree, but ultimately behind the scenes, they're trying to save their bottom line. They're trying to make offers that maybe aren't what we would see in the marketplace, or to make somebody whole after an accident, wear people down so that they don't necessarily want to fight anymore. They just want to do the quick and easy thing. And so I think ultimately they don't always have your best interest at heart.
Which is really unfortunate, because you think, they're my insurance company, they're here to go to bat for me, but ultimately they're trained to save as much money for the company as possible. And the big conversation today is, how do we protect you as the patient? So when should someone consider hiring an attorney after an accident? It doesn't even have to be auto, any kind of accident that they have.
So the sooner the better. You could start with the analysis that we generally work off of a contingency fee that doesn't change, right? And so whether or not you hire an attorney day one or 6 months into it, generally the fee will stay the same. It's sort of, why not get that help right at the very beginning? There's a lot of decisions to make at the very beginning. Insurance companies will immediately begin calling you, putting you on a recorded line, wanting you to make admissions that maybe you shouldn't have admitted. Later on, somewhere down the road, you're like, I wish I wouldn't have said that. That wasn't actually true. There's a lot of adrenaline at the beginning of an accident, so you're feeling okay. You understand that as a medical person, right? You're standing there by
You don't even think you're hurt, and then all of a sudden, 3 days later, your back is just killing you. You can barely walk.
100%.
But then you had a call with an insurance company, immediately after the accident, and you're like, oh, I'm fine, I'm feeling great.
Right.
And they record that line, and then they hold it against you.
100%. Yeah. And so those are the types of things where I would always recommend the sooner the better. Go at least have a consultation. The consultations are generally free with an attorney. So speak with someone, talk about, what your options are. There's a lot of pitfalls and things. There's some laws, some legislation about how much medical bills you actually need to have a case. You should understand that going in.
Absolutely.
And so that you know what it is that you need to do to protect yourself.
Yeah, so let's talk about that consultation. How does an attorney assist in that to make decisions if someone would need to use your services or not?
Well, initially you have to understand a few things. There's always the liability component. Whose fault was the accident? In Utah, you can't be 50% at fault for your own accident and recover. And so you have to understand, was that light red? Was that light yellow? Was somebody turning left? Were you turning left? There's a whole bunch of things to determine whether or not the accident was somebody else's fault or whether it was your fault. And knowing that going in makes a big difference as to how you handle treatment and what you do regarding your case. And so that consultation can happen immediately. We can get copies of the police report. We can get witness statements, things that you need to know going into your accident.
Yeah, I know I've talked to a lot of different patients, and we had a discussion about this, but patients here in Utah especially, people don't want to, they're worried about suing someone else, and they think that they're actually going to go take someone's house away and things like that. And based on our discussion, that's not the case, right? We're literally using the insurance company to protect you, to pay for the bills that you shouldn't have to pay for because it was their fault. And that's why they have insurance, right?
That's correct, yeah. And it does feel like kind of a Utah thing. In Arizona or California, you get in an accident and you just sort of call a lawyer. That's just what you do. We run into a ton of people here that say things to me like, well, I don't want to sue anybody. Let's not do that. And the reality is I've been doing this 15 plus years, and only once or twice have we ever seen anybody personally bring money to the table, right? Mm-hmm. And those are rare cases where someone is really underinsured for the situation and they have, means and that sort of thing, and there's a catastrophic accident. But the reality is we are making claims against insurance companies. And if you've caused an accident, that's why you have insurance.
And is it typical to have any out-of-pocket, say I get in an accident, I call Resh Law, and we get a consultation, we decide to move forward. Is there fees that come out of my pocket if I was not at a fault?
No, and we don't take any payment of any kind until the accident settles. And so our fee is what they call contingency.
And that comes out of the insurance based on maybe my insurance or the insurance of the person at fault.
Generally the person at fault, yeah. And it comes out of the settlement that we get from the insurance company. And so you don't pay anything. You don't pay anything.
If people understood that changes the game, right? That's why we pay premiums.
No risk involved.
Yeah.
No risk in talking
huge.
to an attorney.
Tell me, what are the risks for the person that decides not to use an attorney? That's like, I'll just navigate this on my own. What have you seen?
The first thing that we talked about would be saying something that you shouldn't have said.
No, it's huge.
Also,
and you do it. People do it out of a kind heart, right? They're like, oh, I don't want to push back on this. I just, they were okay. Yeah. But then you have detrimental effects for a decade or 2 decades, or it changes your life forever.
Yes.
Because you can't get the care that you need.
Right. Posting things, right? Social media is a huge thing right now. Posting, thumbs up picture in front of your wrecked car. This happened to me today, but I'm doing fine. Saying things at a point in time when you're not.
That's really good advice. I think a lot of people do that.
Yep. Right? Yeah, 100%. I mean, you document everything today. So an accident, that's front page news.
Because you might be feeling fine today,
right,
but then all of a sudden whiplash kicks in. 24 hours later, you wake up and you can't move.
Those pictures are really hard to recover from. I started out as a defense attorney, and so I was on the other side of it, and I was looking for those pictures. I was combing through somebody's Facebook or their Instagram, and when you post you bring a picture to a deposition and say, "Can you explain this?" You
said you were doing fine after the accident.
You said you were doing fine after the accident, and so maybe before you jump on Instagram, you talk to an attorney.
Yeah. So I really want to touch base on this. I know there's a trust factor with attorneys, that they're dirty, things like that. Those are the words that kind of get thrown around. How does someone know if they are working with a really good, trustworthy attorney?
So that's a good question. The field that I'm in necessarily hasn't raised the bar, so to speak, when it comes to finding a good personal injury attorney. I would say personal attention would be the place where I would start, right? Whether or not that attorney has the time to devote to your case, how they speak to you, whether they're interested in how...
Are you typically working with the attorney when you initial consultation, or do you work with an assistant? Who do you typically work with?
So that depends on who you go to, right? We like to have the attorney involved right at the very beginning because people are hiring an attorney right at the outset. Certainly we have staff that help work on your case. We have assistants and paralegals, but when you're meeting with someone for the first time, we generally would like it to be the attorney that's analyzing the situation and making those decisions. And so if you are not meeting with the attorney at the outset, or at least talking to them in the first few days, then that would be a little bit of a red flag for me. Other red flags would be attorneys that practice in a whole bunch of different areas of law. We see
So
this
more specialization is helpful.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. I mean, if you're doing divorces or writing wills, a personal injury case that comes in the door, a lot of attorneys will just take it. They may not have that expertise at all, but it's like, oh, there's money here somewhere. I'll just try my hand at this. Utah's really a place where this happens a lot too, because people know a lot of attorneys. There's people that they, go to church with or fraternize with or, go to school with or something like that. And so then an attorney gets involved, but maybe it's not their specialty. As a medical provider, you understand I wouldn't have somebody working on my knee that typically just worked on my shoulder, I would want to work with somebody that works on knees. Well, personal injury is no different. And this is what we do. And this is all we do. And I would look for somebody that sort of specializes in that type of law.
Awesome. I love that. We're going to switch gears a little bit and talk about collaboration between attorneys, physical therapists, surgeons if necessary, pretty much healthcare providers. How does working with, skilled healthcare providers benefit attorney's case? And how does it protect the patient?
Well, perfect. And I'm going to back up just to what we just talked about, right? Working with somebody that does personal injury means that they will know who the skilled providers are. Right? They have a network of people that are good, that are throughout the city that they can send to, that they know are the best of what they do, like what you guys do, right? And you guys are absolutely somebody that we would want to send to a medical provider that's doing it the right way. And
so we kind of create this network of, I work with you, you work with, I work with, maybe another pain doctor down the road. I know a great surgeon, but we all kind of work together to keep people in a network to help them get the best care possible.
100%. And that's really important. This has changed a lot in the last 5 years or so. It's become more of a collaborative effort from a team of medical providers. Before, you'd get in an accident and you might go see a chiropractor and they may treat you 55 times and then release you, and that's it, right? They're holding on to that case. They're just trying to kind of bill as much as they can or something of that nature, and you don't see other people getting involved. You'll have Instacare or an ER, and then they get sent to an MD or a PA, and then that PA sends to a chiropractor, or a chiropractor sends to a physical therapist. They go get MRIs, and then they see a pain manager.
I know you've seen this system quite a bit, and I know every case is unique, but I'm thinking about pathway to care. Someone gets in an accident, where do they go first? And you've developed this whole medical complex, right? Tell us a little about that and how to help patients navigate what pathway they should go to.
Well, for me, a big part of it is proximity, right? We want to make care easy on the patient, right? And so they're more likely to treat if they're treating with somebody that's close to them. And so I try to know good people in every part of town, whether it's Bountiful or Lehigh or Tooele or wherever it is. I want to know somebody in that area that's good. And so the first place I would start, and we don't direct care, we don't manage care, we just make a suggestion that, hey, Brad is in Harriman. They're awesome. That would be a place that I would maybe want to start with treatment.
Because typically, we love working with chiropractors. A lot of the society, and maybe it's a Utah thing, maybe it's national, I don't know, but chiropractors have done a really good job at the auto world, and a lot of people will go to chiropractor first. And the chiropractor will manage the care. And, that might be good for some cases. It might not be, but having a medical team is really the best route, because we collaborate with each other, right? And we know when I'm hitting the end of my road with what my care is, and I need someone else to jump in here as well. So how do attorneys and healthcare providers work together to get the best outcomes for the patients? Give us some examples.
Well, I would start with making sure that all of the injuries are being treated, right? Sometimes
It's so huge. Like we see that in our clinics. It's like, oh, someone has shoulder pain after an auto accident, but they hurt their ankle too.
Right.
Like we got to fix both of those things.
100%. And you'll see if you're injured, the thing that's hurting the most is the only thing that you can think about.
Oh,
Right?
100%. One time I broke both my arms and I had these gouges taken out of my knees, but the gouges in my knees hurt so bad I didn't know my arms were broken for a week.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So like you can have those instances where you don't even realize you have another injury till later.
Right. And so medical providers that are able to ask the right questions and to find all of the injuries, and sometimes it's a physical therapist and a chiropractor. Sometimes a chiropractor is working on the spine and a physical therapist is working on that shoulder that was grabbed by the seatbelt at the time of an accident. Well, let's use both in that situation and make sure we're getting all the treatment. But it takes asking the right questions from the attorney. It takes asking the right questions from the medical providers. Mm-hmm. And so you want people that are asking the questions, and ultimately it comes back to whether they're able to give you their attention, whether they're able to give personal attention and just even have the time to ask you those questions.
Yeah, absolutely. What advice do you have for our medical providers on the podcast? As far as, patients come in, they're in an auto accident, they don't have an attorney. What's some practical advice we can give our medical community?
So practical advice, I would say, is first of all, understanding that the process needs to be handled delicately, right? They need to talk about, if they can ask the questions about the accident, they should ask those questions, but they need to not come in a little bit too strong, about, here's an attorney, I'm going to have him come meet with you here tomorrow, that type of thing. It needs
Deposition
to be
tomorrow morning.
Yeah, right.
Let's go.
Yeah, it's not like you're not chasing a deer in a field with a knife, right? Mm-hmm. It's just going to run away, right? And you need to establish a rapport and let them know that you're trying to look out for their best interest. And having an attorney is absolutely part of that best interest, but you need to show them first that you're interested in making sure that they have a good outcome and why an attorney would be important for them. I always, when I talk to a new client, I always say to them, if the analysis is whether or not you should get an attorney or not, the answer is absolutely you should. If it's between me and somebody else, that's fine. It doesn't need to be me. You can find whoever it is that you want, but don't make the decision not to get somebody that's going to help you.
Absolutely. I was talking to a friend just yesterday. We had this conversation earlier, but this friend was getting a commercial real estate building, and he was doing it all alone. And I'm like, dude, you don't have a broker. Mm-hmm. I said, I would never enter a lease, 5-year lease with all those legal terms without a good broker.
Right.
And same thing with an attorney. If I was in an accident, there's no way I would navigate that, the care and what needs to happen, all the legalities, because you can say things that you don't even realize you're saying, and it just puts you in a very bad spot. Most of the time you're doing it at a good heart too,
right?
And you just don't know what you don't know,
right?
And that's why we have trained experts in that area to help navigate those situations.
I saw something in the last couple of weeks that I haven't seen ever before in doing this in the last 15 years. And it's an insurance company within a day or two of the accident offering to send a payout to one of my clients by PayPal or Zelle of $500. I mean, we are. The accident is not even. The car is still warm. The accident is not even 48 hours old.
They do that so often.
And I've seen situations where they'll mail them a check. I've seen situations where
pay them off.
They'll do it quickly, but we are now in a PayPal and Zelle situation is crazy.
So fast. It's like, hey, here's $500 if you just don't talk.
Right. Yeah, it's over. I mean, if you take that money, then the case is over.
Yeah.
And the reality is you don't know at that point in time. So I guess if there's advice I would give the general public that are in an accident, it's slow down. We have a 4-year statute of limitations in the state of Utah. It's the longest in the country.
Tell me what that means.
So they have 4 years to bring a claim against their insurance company. And so there's no speed involved in this. And so if an insurance company is coming at you wanting to give you money to say that your case is over, you should absolutely look at that with a skeptical eye and just be like, I'm not in a hurry here. I better go talk to an attorney. And if that does happen to you, go talk to an attorney.
Yeah, I love it. Now let's briefly talk about comprehensive auto insurance policies. A lot of people don't know what a good insurance policy looks like, what to do to protect themselves. What do you see the biggest errors in the auto industry with certain policies?
Waiving your underinsured, uninsured motorist coverage, right?
So it's a fee that they can save on to essentially say, we're going to waive that.
Usually that's done online, right? It's people
It's a
that go
checkbox.
online and there's a box and you can check and you can save, $2 a month or something by not checking that box. And what you're waiving is if somebody steals a car and they crash into you and there's no insurance on that stolen car, you've just waived your ability to get anything out of your own insurance policy.
And they probably only save $5 a month, right?
Or less, right? And so that's one that I'm blown away that it's even allowable.
Yeah.
It shouldn't even be an option. And so making sure that you have uninsured, underinsured motorist coverage is absolutely a must. The second thing would be people driving around with policies that just are inadequate. In the state of Utah, we have a $25,000 policy is the minimum policy that you can have. And it's just too low.
People get that policy because it's the cheapest.
All the time.
And it's really not that much premium-wise just to get, $1 million policy, right?
Right. And I think...
What does the premium typically change for someone monthly? Is it
hard for me to put a number on it. Insurance is raising a lot right now with that sort of thing, and I can see people's point in not wanting to pay more right now because insurance is expensive and it's getting more expensive all the time. At the same time, the people that are making this decision, in my opinion, the problem comes from the same reason you don't get a lawyer, right? It's you don't go get an insurance agent and you don't talk to somebody that knows what it is, and you just kind of go online like you're an insurance agent yourself and you just click boxes and buy policies, and I think that's a mistake. Insurance agents, the way they get paid is sort of the way an attorney gets paid. It's not coming out of your pocket, and so go talk to an agent.
Yeah.
Don't go on to
advise you
whatever insurancecompany.com and just buy a policy.
That's great advice. Let's kind of wrap up with just some practical key takeaways from the discussion today. What are some key takeaways our listeners should know, just kind of in summary today, on seeking out a good attorney? Why is it necessary? Let's kind of summarize our discussion here.
All right. I can summarize it. I would say the first thing would be getting an attorney as soon as possible, involved as soon as possible. At least have that free consultation, no matter who it is.
Whether at no cost to you.
At no cost to you, whether it's me, it's somebody else. Find an attorney, but the second part would be that attorney has some personal attention to provide you, right?
And ultimately, the attorney is empowering you to essentially make informed decisions.
Right.
Like, here's all the information you need. Here is professional advice so you can get the best care possible.
Right. Yeah. And I would vet that attorney. I would look and see who they are, what their reviews are like, whether they are sort of billboard type that doesn't quite, is kind of handling tons and tons of cases. And so, it's sort of a scenario where they don't have as much time to divide to your case, or if it's somebody that's able to put in the time and the effort and to look into your case and make sure that they're absolutely doing right by you and getting the most out of each case, not just the most cases and getting paid on all of them. And so I would look to make sure that you're getting that type of personal attention from your attorney. The next thing I would want to know is whether they practice in an area of law that is just personal injury. This is their specialty. This is what they do. I don't know. I guess that would be...
I love what you said about, especially here in Utah, people think that they're suing someone else. They're going to take their house. They're going to lose everything. They're going to lose their job. You said in 15 years, it's only happened like once.
Yeah.
People think that they're suing. You're not suing. You're literally just using the insurance for what it's intended to be used for in the first place.
Right.
That's why you pay premiums. That's why the other people pay premiums. We put so much money into auto insurance, but people don't want to use it.
Right.
It's like having health insurance and choosing, I'm just going to do self-pay.
Yep.
I paid $15,000 in premiums this year, but I'm just going to do self-pay instead because I don't want to sue the doctor. You're not suing the doctor. You're literally using your insurance for what it was intended for.
That's a great example. I always relate it to like a life insurance policy, right? And you've paid into it your whole life, and then somebody passes away. You're just not going to collect that money?
Yeah.
Just like I kind of feel weird about collecting that money. I mean, that's what you paid it for. You are making, in an auto accident, you're making a claim.
Yeah.
You are making a claim against an insurance company. You're not, at the outset, you're not suing anybody, and it's ultimately your choice whether you do sue somebody at the end of the process. But you are making a claim, and the reality is the person that rear-ended you, their insurance rates are probably already affected just by the mere fact that they totaled your car. And so by bringing a claim, you're not adding anything to the analysis. There already is a claim being made. They already totaled your car. It's sort of like if you were hit in a hurricane and your house, you blew the roof off of it, and you also had some foundation issues, and it messed with your rain gutters, and all of those things happened. You are making one claim. This person rear-ended you. They totaled your car. They're paying for your car. They're making one claim if you bring an injury case as well. And so you're not going after somebody's boats or their jet skis or ruining them financially. We're making claims against insurance companies.
Yeah, if there's, we'll kind of end with this. What if there was one thing that you would hope that would change in your world of practice, and maybe healthcare as well? What would you hope that would change? This is the Healthcare Revolution podcast, so we want to talk about those types of things. What would you hope that would change?
I would hope that people would at least have consultations, would just go at least seek advice. Yeah. And that's been true in all the industries that we've talked about, the healthcare, the attorney, and the insurance world, and the agents. It's just there are a number of people out there that are experts in their field that will give you advice that costs you nothing. And to take sort of a do-it-yourself approach when you have all of these people out there is turning away from something that's free. And you have an opportunity here to get the advice from people that know, that people have been there before. Just go get that advice.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Resh, we appreciate what you do for the community. It's such a huge needed service. When I think about you, I think about true advocacy for people, giving people justice and actually applying mercy too, and it's a balance. That's what law is, the balance of appropriate justice and mercy. So we appreciate what you do for the community. Thank you for joining us on this podcast, and we appreciate you being here today.
Thanks, Brad.